Hey YouTube, and welcome to the latest video coming to you from All Things Hitman. My name is Reaper1. One of the most common questions I get asked is, what is your most favourite Hitman game? I've answered it probably, I couldn't tell you how many times. And that's what led me to decide to make this video, to actually sit down and explain once and for all which is my favourite Hitman video game and why. I'm not only going to be doing that in this video, I'm also going to be ranking them essentially from my least favourite to my most favourite. So yeah, that's going to be the general premise of this video. Obviously it's fairly subjective, you know, I'm not sitting here saying this is the definitive ranking of all the Hitman games. By no means, this is just my personal opinion. So let me just make that perfectly clear before we get into it, because I don't want to start a war in the comments.
Hitman Blood Money is definitely the best Hitman game. Hitman Absolution is definitely the worst Hitman game.
Funnily enough, my personal ranking doesn't actually have Absolution at the bottom and Blood Money at the top. So I think it's interesting to hear everyone's different rankings. It's also interesting to hear as they explain why. So I'm going to rank them from worst to best. And again, this is just my personal ranking. So please don't take offense if it's not in agreement to yours. So my least favorite is, I hate to say it, but Codename 47, the original Hitman game that was released way back in 2000. And let me explain why. Production value on that game just is not on par with the rest. Voice acting's pretty static and wooden. The graphics aren't the greatest, although they were pretty good for back in the day. The leap from, say, Hitman Codename 47 to Hitman 2 was just, the original Hitman 2 was just mind-boggling. And I just haven't played that game anywhere near the amounts that I have as the others. In all fairness, I suppose I can say I don't know it as well. Hitman Codename 47 is actually the last Hitman game I ever played. When I say that, I mean it's the last Hitman game that I actually ever completed. I suppose that's the main reason I'm putting it down at the bottom. I really enjoy it as a game. I don't think it's a bad game. It's got a cool story. It kind of sets up the origins of Agent 47. But it just, for me personally, it just wasn't as fulfilling an experience as the other games. So yeah, it's at the bottom of my list for those reasons. My second least favourite Hitman game, this will be no surprise to anyone, is obviously Hitman Absolution. Some of you might be thinking, what, you prefer Absolution over Codename 47? Well, yes I do. I got more of a fulfilling experience playing Absolution than I did Codename 47. For me, it was a more enjoyable game. Obviously, the universal aspects of Absolution that I didn't like, such as the linear level design, too much emphasis on narrative rather than focusing on 47, you know, the open strategy formula for 47, how to approach your mission. Graphics were great for the day. I really actually kind of did enjoy the story up to a point. It was a good action game, you know, it was a good story-driven action game, and it doesn't really fit in. All the other set pieces in Hitman series kind of lead on from one to another naturally, and Absolution's just the sore thumb. It just sticks out from a mile away as being different, and I think that's why it's unpopular with a lot of Hitman fans. Probably me too, I suppose. As I said, there's nothing wrong with it as a game in itself. Had it not been a Hitman game, I think I would have really enjoyed it. But because it's part of the Hitman series, you can't help but compare it to the others, and it's just not as good. The biggest fall of Absolution is throwing the disguise system out the window. Although you can use disguises in Absolution, you can't utilize them at all unless you have a shitload of instincts, but on the harder difficulties you don't have that. It tore up a lot of what makes Hitman so unique and what a lot of fans love about the series. So Absolution comes in second last for me. Third last is going to be Contracts. Hitman Contracts is a game, the third entry that I'm going to say this for every single entry, probably aside from Absolution and Codename 47. I love Contracts as a game. I spent a lot of time on it when I was a kid growing up. It's one of the original trilogy that I have so much nostalgia for. The original trilogy being Hitman 2, Silent Assassin, Contracts and Blood Money. I really enjoyed the dark tone. I enjoyed every mission. It just didn't quite have the amount of diversity that Blood Money obviously had in terms of gameplay options. When I play a video game, I really like to have a strong and foundation story that's kind of guiding me through the journey of the game. Contracts didn't really have that. It was more like a random sequence of events that weren't really in chronological order, a random sequence of flashbacks that 47 has as he slips in and out of consciousness. Yeah, that kind of didn't make it as immersive an experience for me comparing to some of the other games that are coming up on my list. I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It holds a special place in my appreciation for the series. Third on my list for third best is Blood Money. Again, that might be shock horror to some of you. Blood Money really set the highest benchmark in terms of weapon customization, the amount of strategies that you have at your disposal when approaching a target. It had a really good story. The relationship between key characters like Diana and 47 kind of peaked in that entry, so that kind of really solidified the story for a lot of players. And it had a nice number of missions, all that were incredibly diverse and different. And I think that's what makes it top of the list for many Hitman players. For me, it's a game that I played the hell out of when it was first released. I did play it again when it came out on the HD trilogy on Xbox 360 when I bought that back in 2012 when Absolution came out. So I haven't actually played Blood Money a whole lot in the last few years, but Blood Money still holds a special spot, like Contracts, for me personally in the Hitman series. I guess the reason I haven't put it at the top of my list, or even second, is just because I haven't played it a whole lot in recent times. So I'm a little bit distanced from it, I suppose. I just haven't had an urge to go back and play it. I think I've kind of just put it to bed, but there must be something about it that I've played it up to a certain point, and that'll do me for now. I can fully understand why a lot of people think it's the best game in the series. Coming in on second on my list is Hitman 2016 and Hitman 2, the latest Hitman game. Although they're technically two different entries, for me they're the same game. Hitman 2 is a continuation of Hitman 2016, and if it wasn't for all that shit going down with Square Enix in 2017, the main Hitman publisher pulling out, I really do believe that Hitman 2 would not have been released under that title. I really think it would have just been released within the Hitman 2016 engine. It just would have been released as a DLC component, as the first 6 episodes were, in my opinion. So I can't distinguish them as two separate games. For me, they're the same game. They are 12 levels that have given me so much pleasure over the last 2 or 3 years, you know, especially Hitman 2016. I don't think there's many games that I've played more than that game. I easily would have clocked up anywhere between 150 to 200 hours, maybe even 200 hours plus. In my personal opinion, I think it's set the bar higher than Blood Money has in terms of sandbox gameplay. There's just so many items we can unlock now, so many cool disguises. The level design of these new missions is beyond anything we've ever received in Hitman, even from Blood Money. Especially in Hitman 2, when you look at levels like Mumbai, there's just so many little laneways and alleyways you can dart down, so many buildings you can enter, so many characters you can interact with. I recently completed the Kashmiran storyline, where you can manipulate him to kill 2 of your 3 targets, or you can become him and kill 2 of your targets as him. It's like multi-layered storytelling at its finest. There's just so many different pathways, that you can manipulate the story to go down as the player. And I just think that's so cool. That's just something we've never seen in a Hitman game, not to that degree anyway. I really like the story. The Shadow Client is by far my favorite antagonist we've ever had, or he's now more a protagonist. The whole storyline of Providence and the Shadow Client, absolutely love it. The voice acting is probably the best it's ever been. Just the effort from IO to keep the content coming. It's not like they just release a game and that's it. We're on our own. It's just us on the Hitman forums. They're doing so much to keep us as a community engaged, and not only keeping us engaged with them, they're also keeping us engaged with each other. You know, IO's doing a lot to keep the community alive through these most recent entries. So for all those reasons, these latest 2 entries come in as my second favourite on the list. That leaves Hitman 2 Silent Assassin, the second entry, as my favourite Hitman game, and that's purely because it is the first Hitman game that I ever played. Obviously it doesn't have the best graphics, obviously it doesn't have the best levels, obviously it doesn't have the best gameplay options. It's the game that got me into the series. It was the game that I first experienced. I've said before that it's a rare experience to play a Hitman game for the first time. To play a Hitman game for the very first time, when you haven't played any other, when you're first exposed to it, that was something that I remember so vividly. I remember finishing Contrano Sanctuary. I remember finishing that and then going into Anathema. Jesper Kid soundtrack in that mission, going into the lion's den of a mob boss's house in Sicily. Oh man, I still remember when I first played that mission, and it was amazing. Like, it just swept me off my feet, took me to another world, And here I am all these years later, and I still think about it so fondly. I've created a whole YouTube channel about this series, you know, so that game had a huge impact on me, on my life, and it's something that's led me on to a passion for something. It's led me on to an appreciation for something that I'm so thankful for. Hands down, Hitman 2 Silent Assassin is my favourite game in the series. It also set the tone for the rest of the series, in my opinion. It defined the Hitman series as we know it today. It was that game that set the trajectory of the entire series, of the whole formula. That's another reason why it's absolutely my favourite game. Plus, I love the music. Anyway guys, that's it. Enough rambling from me. It'll be interesting for me to watch this back, because I don't know if my ramblings here have made any sense at all. I hope it has. Make sure you leave your rankings in the comments below. I'd like to see them. It's always interesting to see other people's opinions. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're not, share my stuff around, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.